Alright, where were we? Many called him insane, but I knew him to be as sane as I was. I do not deny that he was eccentric. The mania he had for keeping that cat and teasing her until she flew at his face like a demon was certainly eccentric. I never could understand why he kept the creature, nor what pleasure he found in shutting himself up in his room with this surly, vicious beast. I remember once glancing up from the manuscript I was studying by the light of some tallow dips and seeing Mr. Wilde squatting motionless on his high chair. His eyes fairly blazing with excitement, while the cat, which had risen from her place before the stove, come creeping across the floor right at him. Before I could move, she flattened her belly to the ground, crouched, trembled, and sprang into his face. Howling and foaming, they rolled over and over on the floor, scratching and clawing until the cat screamed and fled under the cabinet, and Mr. Wilde turned over on his back, his limbs contracting and curling up like the legs of a dying spider. He was eccentric. That sounds very eccentric. Mr. Wilde had climbed into his high chair and, after studying my face, picked up a dog-eared ledger and opened it. Henry B. Matthews, he read, bookkeeper with Wysott and Company, dealers in church ornaments. Called April 3rd, reputation damaged on the racetrack. Known as a Welcher, reputation to be repaired by August 1st, retainer $5. He turned the pages and ran his fingerless knuckles down the closely written columns.
Can you imagine somebody paid to manage your image? What?
Yeah, right? That's such a wild thing to have.
What a science fiction concept for the 1900s.
God. P. Green Dusenberry, Minister of Gospel, Fair Beach, New Jersey. Reputation damaged in the Bowery. To be repaired as soon as possible. Retainer $100. He coughed and added, called April 6th. Then you are not in need of money, Mr. Wilde? I inquired. Listen, he coughed again. Mrs. C. Hamilton Chester of Chester Park, New York City. Called April 7th. Reputation damaged at Deep, France. To be repaired by October 1st. Retainer $500. Note. C. Hamilton Chester, Captain USS Avalanche. Ordered home from South Sea Squadron October 1st. Well, I said, the profession of a repairer of reputations is lucrative. His colorless eyes sought mine. I only wanted to demonstrate that I was correct. You said it was impossible to succeed as a repairer of reputations, that even if I did succeed in certain cases, it would cost me more than I would gain by it. Today, I have 500 men in my employ, who are poorly paid, but who pursue the work with an enthusiasm which possibly may be born out of fear.
Maybe Mr. Beast?
Yes, yes. These men enter every shade and grade of society. Some even are pillars of the most exclusive social temples. Others are the prop and pride of the financial world. Still others hold undisputed sway among the fancy and the talent.
The fancy and the talented.
I love it.
You can be fancy and be a hack, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's honestly far more of that than anything else. I choose them at my leisure from those who reply to my advertisements. It is easy enough. They're all cowards. I could tremble the number in 20 days if I wished. So you see, those who have in their keeping the reputations of their fellow citizens, I have in my pay. They may turn on you, I suggested. He rubbed his thumb over his cropped ear and adjusted the wax substitutes. I think not, he murmured thoughtfully. I seldom have to apply the whip, and then only once. Besides, they like their wages. How do you apply the whip? I demanded. His face for a moment was awful to look upon. His eyes dwindled to a pair of green sparks. I invite them to come and have a little chat with me, he said in a soft voice. Step into my office. Oh, God, Matt Lauer locking his door behind you. Oh, no, Matt, no. A knock at the door interrupted him, and his face resumed its amiable expression. Who is it? He inquired. Mr. Stilets, was the answer. Come tomorrow, replied Mr. Wilde. Impossible, began the other, but was silenced by a sort of bark from Mr. Wilde. Come tomorrow, he repeated. We heard somebody move away from the door and turn the corner by the stairway. Who is that, I asked. Arnold Stylet, owner and editor-in-chief of the Great New York Daily. He drummed up on the ledger with his fingerless hand, adding, I pay him very badly, but he thinks it's a good bargain. God,
this is very like Sweet Smell of Success.
Yeah. Just like
I traffic in gossip, and reputation, and names.
I don't let my left hand wash my right hand.
Yeah, my left hand hasn't seen my right hand in 30 years.
Like, man.
If that's on Tubi, chat, seek it out. It's up there from time to time. Criterion has a good release of it. The Sweet Smell of Success, starring Burt Lancaster. It's
so good.
It's not like a detective noir. It's like one of those 1950s movies that's using noir trappings, but it's not like a detective cop thing.
It's like a self-destruction almost.
Yeah, it's a gossip columnist in New York, and his boss is just Satan incarnate.
Yeah, but he's also kind of at his beck and call because he wants what he's got.
It's got some of that 50s Latin homophobia stuff going on.
Ooh, yeah.
Also, a very cool movie.
Wasn't they called people, like they had like an ice cream face, was like a sweet thing. They kept telling me they had an ice cream face. I was like, what is this?
Dude has an ice cream face because he's too sweet.
Yeah, like, so sweet and delicious.
Some great nighttime cinematography too. It's black and white, has like one of my favorite street runners in cinema.
It's phenomenal.
The Sweet Smell of Success. Seek it out.
Also, really quick, I'm going to pause this really quick, guys. I'm going to put a charge on our audio so that way we can definitely hear things, and I'll have to kill this chat window. And I'll have to
Once again, you're watching TechnoPoverty. We're experimenting with a sort of 3-screen setup right now. Jacob's working his way through the Robert Chambers classic, The King in Yellow. The first story in the compilation is called The Repair of Reputations.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah, it's
good.
It's good. I don't want to try to re-sum up so shortly. I'll just continue letting Jacob read it.
Yeah, we'll, it's feeling real nice. Like, this is really fun doing the overhead, not gonna lie though. Let's see. I think it's enough angle. Alright. I just want to say that last line. He drummed upon the ledger with his fingerless hand, adding, I pay him very badly, but he thinks it's a good bargain. Arnold Stylet, I repeated, amazed. Yes, Mr. Wilde, with a self-satisfied cough. The cat, which had entered the room as he spoke, hesitated, looked up at him, and snarled. He climbed down from the chair, and squatting on the floor, took the creature into his arms and caressed her. The cat ceased snarling, and presently began a loud purring, which seemed to increase in timbre as he stroked her. Where are the notes, I asked. He pointed to the table, and for the 100th time, I picked up the bundle of the manuscript entitled, The Imperialist Dynasty of America. One by one, I studied the well-worn pages, worn only by my own handling, and although I knew all by heart from the beginning, when from Carcosa, the Hades Hastur, and the Aldebaran, and the Castine, Louis de Cavados, born December 19th, 1877, I read it with an eager, rapt attention, pausing to repeat parts of it aloud and dwelling especially on Hildred de Calvados, only son of Hildred Castine and Edith Langs Castine, first in succession, etc., etc. When I finished, Mr. Wilde nodded and coughed. Speaking of your legitimate ambition, he said, how do Constance and Louis get along? She loves him, I replied simply. The cat on his knee suddenly turned and struck at his eye. He flung her off and climbed onto the chair opposite me. And Dr. Archer, that's the matter you can settle any time you wish, he added. Yes, I replied. Dr. Archer can. But it is time I saw my cousin Louis. It is time, he repeated. Then he took another ledger from the table and ran over the leaves rapidly. We are now in communication with 10,000 men, he muttered. We can count on 100,000 within the first 28 hours, and in 48 hours, the state will rise in mass. The country follows the state, and the portion that will not, I mean California and the Northwest, might better never be might better never have been inhabited. I shall not send them the yellow sign. The blood rushed to my head, but I had only answered, a new broom sweeps clean. The ambition of Caesar and the Napoleon pales before that which could not rest until it had seized the minds of men and controlled their unborn thoughts, said Mr. Wilde. You are speaking of the king in yellow, I groaned with a shudder. He is a king whom emperors have served. I am content to serve, I replied. Mr. Wilde sat rubbing his ears in crippled hand. Perhaps Constance does not love him, he suggested. I started to reply, but a sudden burst of military music from the street below drowned my voice. The 20th Dragoon Regiment, formerly a garrison at Mount St. Vincent, was returning from maneuvers in Westchester County to its new barracks on East Washington Square. It was my cousin's regiment. They were a fine lot of fellows, in their pale blue tight-fitting jackets, jaunty busbies, and white riding breeches in the double yellow stripe, into which their limbs seemed molded. Every other squadron was armed with lances from the metal points of which fluttered yellow and white pennons. The band passed, playing the regimental march, then came to the colonel and staff, the horses crowding and trampling, while their heads bobbed in unison, and the pennons fluttered from their lance points. The troopers who rode with a beautiful English seat looked brown as berries from the bloodless campaign among the farms of Westchester, and the music of their sabers against the stirrups and the jingle of their spurs and carbines was delightful to me. I saw Louis riding with his squadron. He was as handsome an officer as I have ever seen. Mr. Wilde, who had mounted a chair by the window, saw him too, but said nothing. Louis turned and looked straight at Hawkberg's shop as he passed, and I could see the flush on his own brown cheeks. I think Constance must have been at the window. When the last troopers had cluttered by, the last pennons had vanished into the South Fifth Avenue, Mr. Wilde clambered out of his chair and dragged the chest away from the door. Yes, he said. It's time that you saw your cousin Louis. He unlocked the door and picked up my hat and stick and stepped into the corridor. The stairs were dark. Groping about, I set my foot on something soft, which snarled and spit, and aimed a murderous blow at the cat, but my cane shivered into splinters against the balustrade, and the beast scurried back into Mr. Wilde's room. Passing Hawkberg's door again, I saw him still at work on the armor, but I did not stop, and stepping out onto Bleecker Street, I followed it to Worcester and skirted the grounds of the lethal chamber, and crossing Washington Park went straight to my rooms in the Benedict. Here I lunched comfortably, read the Herald and the Meteor, and finally went to the steel safe in my bedroom and set the time combination. The 3 3/4 minutes which it is necessary to wait while the time lock is opening are me golden moments. For the instant I set the combination to the moment I grasp the knobs and swing back the solid steel doors, I live in an ecstasy of expectation. Those moments must be like moments passed in paradise. I know what I am to find at the end of the time limit. I know what the massive safe holds secure for me alone, and the exquisite pleasure of waiting is hardly enhanced when the safe opens and I lift from its velvet crown a diadem of purest gold blazing with diamonds. I do this every day, and yet the joy of waiting and at last touching again the diadem only seems to increase as the days pass.
He just has a little tiara in that safe.
Like, how cute. Like, it is a diadem fit for a king among kings, an emperor among emperors. The king in yellow might scorn it, but it shall be worn by his royal servant. I held it in my arms until the alarm in the safe rang harshly, and then tenderly, proudly, I replaced it and shut the steel doors. I walked slowly back into my study, which faces Washington Square, and leaned on the windowsill. The afternoon sun poured into my windows, and the gentle breeze stirred the branches of the elms and maples in the park, now covered with buds and tender foliage. A flock of pigeons circled about the tower of the Memorial Church, sometimes alighting on the purple tiled roof, sometimes wheeling downward at the Lotto's fountain in front of the marble arch. The gardeners were busy with the flower beds around the fountain, and the freshly turned earth smelled sweet and spicy. A lawnmower drawn at the fat white horse drawn by a fat white horse, clinked across the green sward, and watering carts poured showers of spray over the asphalt drives. Around the statue of Peter Stuyvesant, which in 1897 had replaced the monstrosity supposed to represent Garibaldi, children played in the spring sunshine, and nurse girls wheeled elaborate baby carriages with a reckless disregard for the pasty-faced. Pasty-face.
Yeah, I do love finding old insults and things, like talking about ice cream face, pasty face.
Yeah! It's like those very weird, like, why would, that's a very interesting thing to be telling people. Let's see what we got. The pasty-face occupants could probably be explained by the presence of a half-dozen trim dragoon troopers languidly lolling on the beaches. Through the trees, the Washington Memorial Arch glistened like silver in the sunshine, and beyond on the eastern extremities of the square, the gray stone barracks of the dragoons and the white granite artillery stables were alive with color and motion. I looked at the lethal chamber on the corner of the square opposite. A few curious people still lingered about the gilding iron railing, but inside the grounds the paths were deserted. I watched the fountains ripple and sparkle, and the sparrows had already found this new bathing nook, and the basins were covered with dusty, feathered little things. 2 or 3 white peacocks picked their way across the lawns, and a drab-colored pigeon sat so motionless on the arm of one of the fates that it seemed to be part of the sculpture's stone. As I was turning carelessly away, a slight commotion of the group of curious loiterers around the gates attracted my attention. A young man had entered and was advancing with nervous strides along the gravel path which leads to the bronze doors of the lethal chamber. He paused a moment. Before the fates, and as he raised his head to those 3 mysterious faces, the pigeon rose from its sculptured perch, circled about for a moment, and wheeled to the east. The young man pressed his hand to his face, and then with an undefinable gesture sprang up the marble steps. The bronze doors closed behind him, and half an hour later the loiterers slouched away, and the frightening pigeon returned to its perch in the arms of the fate. I put on my hat and went into the park for a little walk before dinner. As I crossed the central driveway, a group of officers passed, and one of them called out, "Hello, Hildred," and came back to shake hands with me. It was my cousin Louis, who stood smiling and tapping his spurred heels with his riding whip. "Just back from Westchester," he said. "Been doing the bucolic, milk and curds, you know, dairy maids and sunbonnets, who say how, and I don't think when you tell them that they're pretty. And I don't think when you tell them they are pretty. I'm nearly dead for a square meal at Delmonico's. What's the news?" "There is none," I replied pleasantly. "I saw your regiment coming in this morning." "Did you? I didn't see you. Where were you?" "In Mr. Wilde's window." "Oh, hell," he began impatiently. "That man is stark mad. I don't understand why you—" He saw how annoyed I felt by his outburst and begged my pardon. "Really, old chap," he said, "I don't mean to run down a man you like, but for the life of me, I can't see what the deuce you find in common with Mr. Wilde. He's not well bred, to put it generously. He's hideously deformed. His head is of a criminally insane person. You know yourself he's been in an asylum." "So have I interrupted calmly. Louis looked startled and confused for a moment, but recovered and slapped me heartily on the shoulder. "You were completely cured," he began, but I stopped him again. "I suppose you mean I was simply acknowledged never to have been insane." "Of course, that's what I meant," he laughed. I disliked his laugh because I knew it was forced, but I nodded gaily and asked him where he was going. Louis asked me for his brother's officers, who had now almost reached Broadway. That was really funny. "You were cured." He's crazy.
You were at the crazy person place, but you weren't crazy. It's fine.
It's funny now.
Again, just like a reflective of like them adopting this state.
Yeah, I really like just the constant reminder of just this suicide chamber. It's like, I'm just gonna keep playing this.
Yeah,
like,
the kill yourself booths.
Yeah, the kill yourself booths. It's like, that's horrifying. Oh man, where are we at?
Okay, I hit him and it made him mad.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Ooh, that looks like the fucking clown from McFarlane Toys.
Yeah, the Spawn clown.
Yeah.
Kinda. John Leguizamo.
Yeah, John Leguizamo. God, what a great movie too. Nah. Okay. Of course that's what I meant, he laughed. I disliked his laugh because I knew it was forced. But I nodded gaily and asked him where he was going. Louis looked after his brother's officers, who had now almost reached Broadway. We had intended to sample a Brunswick cocktail, but to tell you the truth, I was anxious for an excuse to go see Hallberg instead. Come along, I'll make you my excuse. We found old Hallberg neatly attired in a fresh spring suit, standing at the door of his shop and sniffing the air. I had just decided to take Constance for a little stroll before dinner, he replied to the impetuous volley of questions from Louis. We thought of walking in on the park terrace along the North River. At that moment, Constance appeared and grew pale and rosy by turns at Louis, bent over her small, gloved fingers. I tried to excuse myself, alleging an engagement uptown, but Louis and Constance would not listen, and I saw I was expected to remain and engage old Hallberg's attention. After all, it would be just as well if I kept my eye on Louis, I thought, and then when they hailed a Spring Street horse car, I got in after them and took my seat beside the armorer. The beautiful line of parks and granite terraces overlooking the wharves along the North River, which were built in 1910 and finished in the autumn of 1917, had become one of the most popular promenades in the metropolis. They extended from the Battery to the 190th Street, overlooking the noble river and affording a fine view of the Jersey Shore and the highlands opposite. Cafes and restaurants were scattered here and there among the trees, and twice a week the military bands from the garrison played in the kiosks on the parapets. We sat down in the sunshine on the bench at the foot of the equestrian statue of General Sheridan. Constance tipped her sunshade to shield her eyes, and she and Louis began a murmuring conversation which was impossible to catch. Old Hallberg, leaning on his ivory-headed cane, lighted an excellent cigar, the maid to which I politely refused, and smiled at vacancy. The sun hung low before the Staten Island woods, and the bay was dyed with golden hues reflected from the sun-warmed sails of the shipping in the harbor. Brigs, schooners, yachts, clumsy ferry boats, their decks swarming with people, railroad transports carrying lines of brown, blue, and white freighted cars, stately sound streamers, declassed tramp steamers, coasters, dredgers, scows, and everywhere pervading in the entire bay, impudent little tugs puffing and whistling officiously. These were the craft which churned the sunlight waters as far as the eye could reach. In calm contrast to the hurry-sailing vessels, the steamer was a silent fleet of white warships lay motionless in midstream. Constance's merry laugh aroused me from my reverie. "What are you staring at?" she inquired. "Nothing. The fleet," I smiled. Then Louis told us that the vessels were pointing out each by its relative position to the old red fort on Governor's Island. "That little cigar-shaped thing is a torpedo boat," he explained. "There are 4 more lying close together. There are the Tarpon, the Falcon, the Sea Fox, and the Octopus. The gunboats just above the Princeton, the Champlain, the Stillwater, and the Erie. Next to them lie the cruisers."
If you want to watch.
Oh, yeah. Pause. Thank you.
Yeah, mark your spot.
Yeah.